Hi, and welcome to this video where we're going to cover patch 13.2, otherwise 13.1b, depending on, I guess, what you're looking at. I was looking at something yesterday on Twitter, and they're talking about 13.3, and I'm like, we're not even on 13.2, or did 1b supposed to happen this week? Is 1b becoming 13.2? And frankly, because I don't play, I'm not on top of that stuff when it comes to PvE and things like that. So we're just going to go over 13.2, 13.1b, whatever you want to call it right now. Looking at the champions that are nerfed and buffed and treating them all equally. I understand not all buffs and nerfs are treated equally, but we're trying to dumb this video down, so that's the way it is. It's black and white. Either it's a nerf or a buff that either hurts you if it's nerfed or it's buffed and it helps you. So how do I determine which teams are buffed or nerfed? Well, it's funny you asked. Because of all these nerfs, we look at GP, Heimer, Maokai, Kindred, Kassadin, Ryze, Lucian, Yuumi, Nami. Yuumi, Nami being the bulk of what this patch is about. Everyone's rejoicing that the cat may be dead, right? So, how do I determine which teams are most nerfed by that? Well, who played it the most this split? Not who got banned against. I mean, that's whatever. Simply who picked it the most. Those teams are the ones that have been relying on these champions more than anybody else thus far, so that hurts their champion pool, right? And then we look at the champions that are buffed, and only Lilia, Zoe, and Orianna are buffed. I think a fourth champion might have been buffed, but nobody plays it. So, Annie. I don't know if Annie was buffed or nerfed, but nevertheless, I took Annie out of there because she hasn't been played in years except Cryan. Cryan played it. Jensen played it once. But regardless, buffs. Well, everybody plays these champions a bit. They're in most people's pools, especially Orianna and Zoe. They've been played for a long time. Oryx, very much so. Now, the way I do that is that, okay, who's played it recently? When it was semi-meta, which last year, Ori and Zoe were part of the meta, who played it the most? Those are the names that we end up noting, and we cross-reference who is the most nerfed and most buffed by this. It's a long intro. People are going to skip it, and then they're going to comment below, and frankly, maybe you should sit through the intro. So, who's happy about this? In the LPL, EDG is happy. EDG is actually the most happy team about this patch. None of these nerfs overly affect what they are doing thus far. We're not taking into account this morning. EDG and IG series, keep that in mind. This is based off of everything before this morning. So, JJ played Lilia when it was meta, more often than most. And then Fofo played Zoe and Ori last year, or more often than most. So, all three of those buffs are good for EDG. Then we look at LNG. Tarzan plays Lilia, and Scout plays Zoe. RNG, Wei plays Lilia, and Angel plays Orianna. So those three LPL teams are happy about this patch. The nerfs don't overly affect what they're doing at this point in the split. LCS. So let's do this first. LCS, 100 Thieves. Lilia and Orianna are the most played. Closers Lilia, Bjerg's Orianna. They play it more often than most in their region. So they end up getting on there. Not only do they play it more often than most, but they play it a good significant amount of their games. TSM, Maple, Zoe, and Orianna. So Maple's happy. That's good for TSM. They need Maple to be at his best if they want any chance to overcome, the lapses in their bot lane and in top lane. Not to say Solo, Neo, and Chime are bad, but they're average. So those two regions, those 5 teams are the most happy about it. So you're going to say to yourself, why isn't the LEC on there? The LEC isn't on here at all, actually. They're not happy or sad about this patch overly compared to everybody else. It's very in the middle. There's like 50 teams I've made note of that are affected by this patch one way or another, but more often than not, it's a wash. These are the teams most affected. And it's because the LEC with the nerfs, the LEC have kind of went on their own when it comes to their meta. They are working through it a lot quicker than everybody else because of the nature of their schedule. They have to do that. So we're seeing a lot of interesting picks out of the LEC that we're not seeing anywhere else, and they're leaving some things by the wayside and not caring. LCK, I guess the LCK, a lot of players play Zoe, Orianna, and Lilia, but not to the point where it ends up registering really to offset the nerfs. Like in the end, it's got to offset the nerfs to end up on here. Now, the LCK do have 3 teams negatively affected by this, T1 being the most sad by this patch. Kassadin, Lucian, Nami. Faker's played Kassadin a few times already this year. Guma and Keria have played Lucian, Nami. So those 3 champs being taken out of the champion pool, is that going to overly affect Faker and Keria? Probably not. Faker's literally, they probably have the 2 deepest champion pools in the world. Guma, on the other hand, we see some limitations from Guma over the last year. Summer being a struggle for him. So taking the Lucian out, we'll see what happens with that. D+. So, D+ Kia, Lucian, Nami. We see Deft and Kellen play a lot of Lucian, Nami. We saw a preview of what it might look like post Lucian, Nami today when they had to play Sivir. They struggled. So, we'll see what D+ do going forward when it comes to that. But, nevertheless, they're not happy about this. And then we have a mix from Bro. So, Bro has 4 champions on here. Umpty played a ton of Lilia, more than any other LCK jungler when Lilia was meta last time. So I did make note of that. That's an interesting thing to think about. I think he did actually play Lilia already this year in the LCK. But we've seen that he's also played Maokai more than your average LCK jungler. And then the bot lane of Henna Effort has played Lucian, Nami a number of times. So 3 of the top 6 teams, you would say at this point, top 7 teams have to work through this patch and, you know, maybe change up their priority in draft and things like that. LPL, Ninjas in Pajamas. We see Dream has played Ryze a couple times, more than your average LPL mid laner thus far. So that's taken out of Dream's champion pool, and I really hope it goes deeper than that because Renekton mid needs to go into the grave 6 feet under. And then we have Yuumi for Zhu. Obviously, Yuumi is a super, super strong pick, and they picked it more than anyone really in the LPL thus far. Then we have Ultra Prime, a team that really can't afford to have sad patches. Their bot lane of Doggo, Balan, Lucian, Nami, that's nerfed, so we'll see what they do going forward, but they really can't afford it because a lot of these teams on here are pretty good, right? We see EDG, LNG, RNG, 3 teams we expect to make the playoffs. 100 Thieves probably make the playoffs in the LCS. Will they be a top-tier Worlds team? Probably not. TSM, towards the bottom, 2-0 right now, but we know where TSM really sits in the hierarchy of things. T1 and D+, very good teams that are hurt by this patch. Bro probably can't afford to deal with this. Umpty is, you know, in the middle on it. Lilia, obviously, being a very important champion to his pool. And then Nip and Ultra Prime, really 2 lower tier LPL teams that are most negatively affected. So this is a brief overview of how 13.2, 13.1b affects the teams in LOL Esports in the 4 major regions. If you like the video, like it, subscribe to the channel for daily League of Legends content. Follow me on Twitter, join the Discord, become a YouTube member, and thank you for watching.